Hey guys, welcome back to Legendary Tabletop. I'm Greg, your host, and today we're continuing our Mordheim and Lustria board build. Now, last week we built a little bit of scatter terrain, some nice jungle hills, but today we're going to make a new centerpiece for our board build, an epic jungle tower.
Right, if you haven't already, please hit the like and the subscribe and help us out here. And today we are continuing, obviously, our little build, and I'm starting this tower with some geometric shapes. I believe a few weeks ago we talked about some of the rules of composition, and we're following one of the rules here. Now, one of those rules of composition is thirds and fifths, so that is like the shape of certain elements of your piece, whether it's an illustration or a sculpture. The one element will be a fifth or a third, and I believe that this has to do with the way shapes appear in nature, that they appear in thirds and fifths. This has to do with this thing called the Fibonacci spiral. So as artists, we kind of follow those rules, and we can create things that are of beauty as well. And so the idea here is that these little trim pieces, the smaller portion of the tower that frame these larger pieces, are about a fifth of the object's total visual weight. And if that was vague, I'm sorry. But that's the best my dyslexic brain can explain it to you. So yes, the idea is that this is going to be a big centerpiece for our Mordheim and Lustria build, and it's going to look really amazing. Now, there was an original art piece that I had seen when I was looking for inspiration. I was actually checking out some of the footage from Total War Warhammer 1 and 2. I believe there is also a third game made by Creative Assembly, and I actually do own this game, and I played it quite a bit. I just had to stop because it's just too good. I would just find myself playing this thing. I won't tell you the hours on Steam that I had played this, so it was time to stop. But really cool game if you're into Warhammer, if you're into real-time strategy games. This is like the Total War Warhammer is it. Now, there was a piece that I saw during the game that I couldn't find the picture for, but they had these Lizardmen towers that had like a giant, basically dinosaur, lizard, whatever it is, skull on top. Well, not a skull, but like a head, basically, like a abstract head that was similar to the design language in the building. So a lot of geometric shapes. Basically, the head of the lizard on the top of the tower is stylized in quite a way. So we basically carved using some squares here. Now we're using the third rule. This face, this head, is about a third of the visual weight of the circumference of the tower, and then when you look at the tower as a whole, the head itself is this 1/5 of the size of the tower. And hopefully you guys can kind of see what I'm saying here. And then I'm just taking a little bit of embellishments and just slowly kind of adding more geometric shapes, creating this kind of dinosaur skull, and then cutting off thin little slices of foam in order to cover some of the places where I had glued it together. And then we have glued it on top, and then I'm repeating some of the design language from the pyramids that we had built in our previous buildings here for our Mordheim and Lustria build. There's a lot of these little triangles. And then moving along here to the hot wire cutter. Safety alert, be sure if you use one of these that you use this in a ventilated space and that you wear the proper mask. Now I'm going to be adding a lot of embellishments to this tower. And I learned from the previous constructions that it's hard to do the bricks once you've added a lot of the embellishments. I end up, whacking a lot of things with the hot wire cutting and creating indentations where I did not want them. So in order to make my life a little bit easier, I'm just preemptively carving some of the bricks, and I like to carve the bricks. I don't like to cut the bricks and glue them on. A lot of people do that. You are insane. I'm not doing that. And yes, so making my life easy here and just carving these pieces. Got a window open, and then we got a nice base for our detail here, and this tower is coming along very nicely. And now the one thing I did not put on this tower was doors, and I had this little imagination head cannon idea that this was sort of like the watchtower of the Lizardmen, and that they had hidden doors, because in the Warhammer lore, the Lizardmen are very technologically advanced, and they have access to a lot of technologies that the human races don't use, and some of it is borderline science fiction, and so I wanted to kind of carry that idea. And then I had a hieroglyph type piece. I have these 3D printed pieces from One Page Rules, all stuff that I had made before for the previous architecture for this build, and I had made just a bunch of them so that when I got to this step that I could just glue the hieroglyph on, glue the 3D prints on. So I had all sorts of this same stuff that would tie all these buildings together. And the statues here looked a little silly, so I made a little kind of like platform for them so they fit these little outshoots a little bit better. And these are once again from One Page Rules, and this is kind of like the great thing about 3D printing. It is it isn't nice to set up a building and print a whole building at once, but that can get expensive. This stuff, it can be toxic, and so I like using 3D prints as tiny little elements of the build that I would not be able to make myself, or that if I did sculpt them and do myself, that it would just take so long, and that the 3D print helps us out. And now, after marinating on this build a little bit, I thought that it did need some platforms and just a way to get to the top without ruining the aesthetic too much. So now I've taken out a bunch of coffee stir sticks and all these little wood scraps, that sort of thing, and I'm using the already crevices here I don't need any glue. I can just stick the popsicle sticks in there, and then I crack off that little circular edge in order to make it look a little bit more natural. And then I'm using the coffee stir sticks as the planks. These are just a little bit better to scale. Popsicle sticks can look good, but they kind of make the scale a little bit strange. So then while this dries, I'm just taking some of the coffee stir sticks with some Elmer's glue, and I'm making some little ladders here. So the idea is that in the back of the tower, maybe you use this for a D&D adventure, and the adventurers stumble across the tower and they don't see the back and there's no way up, and then kind of once they explore and get to the back, there are these little platforms and ladders that you can get up, and then maybe that there is you could have a little fight to the top of the tower, and then the ladders will go up to that ledge. So then for Mordheim too, a lot of the buildings that we built for the Mordheim build, this Lustria board, have a lot of different paths towards the top, and this has one. So then we could probably put one token on the top, and this would be sort of like a point of contention for your games and make your games exciting, because sometimes, yeah, agency is good, giving the players different options, different ways to play, but then sometimes you can funnel the fun a little bit and create choke points, I guess is what you would proper verbiage for what we called in previous videos the treehouse effect. And then now I'm moving on to a ballpoint pen here to do some of the more intricate detail that would be too difficult to do with the hot wire cutter, and putting on a podcast here and just slowly adding a lot of these little geometric shapes that are appearing in the pyramids, all the other stuff on our board for our little lizard man city. And yeah, the piece is really coming together, and now that we've done a few of these in this sort of same element, same design, we're moving along through this tower very quickly. And yeah, I love this little dinosaur head. And I don't think I was off on a tangent before, but I think what I was saying is I saw something like this in the Warhammer 2 game, and but I got carried away talking about how I couldn't control myself playing that game too long. But yeah, so Lizard Tower, Mordheim, Lustria. All right, so moving along here to some of the rocks and stones and sand, and we're just putting that on the corners and the base here to make this thing look a little bit run down, a little bit aged, like it actually is in the jungle. I think it was like reading something about the jungle, specifically the Amazon, where like archaeology is difficult there because the jungle grows so fast that it destroys archaeological and fossil evidence. Interesting. And yes, I have these little beads here, and these are kind of like terracotta. They're supposed to be little geometric pots and stuff, so some more little pieces to provide a proper scale during the game. And then now we're taking, of course, some minis and making sure everything works. We can have little dudes on top. We have a little goblin boy and our high elf dude checking it out, surveying the scene. Looks good, they can fit. And then we have the little platforms where dudes are gonna battle their way up, and everybody fits here too. Yeah, happy little goblin, happy little boy. And our build is coming along nicely.
Oh hey there, didn't see you there. Just a little break here in our video. One of the things I just love the most about the hobby is this stuff. It's beautiful. Out of all the things that we paint, these things. Ooh, look at this one. Yes. Why is that so satisfying? Why is that good? I need some of these. Ooh. It's beautiful. Yes. Little Jackson Pollock over here. Maybe one day I'll be a famous artist and I can sell this for $4.99. Back to the video.
All right, moving along. We are moving on to the low temperature hot glue gun. We've let these sand and pebbles dry, and then I'm using hot glue to create the illusion of vines. Just going really slow here and having the vines naturally, organically grow towards the top of the piece. And this will add some nice contrast and make our tower appear like it's in the jungle. And then we are going to apply our 100% American-made Freedom paste here, sealing our piece, making it nice, getting everything together and love this step. We get to finally see kind of what this looks like. It's not pink anymore. And if you have any questions, comment below. And we're going to go pretty fast through the painting portion here because there are other videos where basically we paint this Lustria buildings kind of the same. So we start with the black undercoat with the freedom paste, and then I'm using this sort of brown for like a heavy overbrush, and I'm not really wiping away a lot of the paint, but I'm not being too aggressive to where I'm trying to keep some of the black in the crevices so that we can keep that for the detail. And just going along, painting the piece, starting to come together, and then after that dries, I take an orangey brown and I'm going to apply a sort of mid gradient to this, and I'm going to be kind of adding water to the acrylic paint so that this will naturally blend. Once it's dried, as we say in most and all videos, the acrylic paint will appear much stronger while we're applying it, but once it dries, it is much more opaque, much less strong. And this kind of also creates a nice undertone. There's going to be a lot of like jungle plants and things on here, so we want to have a nice balance of cool colors and warm colors. And then now I have sort of this, I guess you would call it the pale sand type of color, which is easily made with a blend of white, yellow, and brown. And this is kind of like the tan overbrush for our buildings, and the way that I apply this is mostly on the top surfaces, and I will brush in a downward motion in order to create the illusion of light resting down onto the piece. And with this too, I'm going to water the acrylic paint down a little bit so that I can go in small layers, and then I can go back to some of the pieces that I had previously made for the city build in order to make sure that this matches. Because I definitely like when it's in front of you, it's one thing, but in order to kind of really check and make sure that it matches, you should go back and try it in different lighting. And I had actually done this a few times, and I was just slightly off. I needed to brighten up this. Doesn't really come across on the video so much, but in the end, once I had let it dry and put it on the table, I was like, oh, this is like not exactly the same. So I had to go back and add a little bit more white to it, and then I also added another layer with a little bit more of the yellow, and that seemed to bring everything back to how the other pieces looked, and it matched perfectly, which you guys will see in the end of the video when we roll that beautiful bean footage, as you know. And now moving along and letting that tan dry, and I'm going to move on to painting the vines. I could be a little bit sloppy with this because the vines would be, growing off in different directions. There would be, moss, all sorts of plants growing on any sort of pyramid or tower or whatever it is growing in the jungle. And I use two greens here, so I kind of use like a mid-grade normal desaturated green for the initial, and then I will let that dry and then come back with a more yellowish green. And if you didn't have that, you could just add some yellow to your green. And then here I'm going heavy on the paint, and I sort of like overbrush it so that it's catching some of the edges in order to create a little bit of or more of the illusion of depth here. And once again, yeah, this comes across really strong, but it will dry and blend with the other green, and we will get a nice effect from that. And this step is always nice too, because we start to get some balance in the piece between the stone and the colors of nature here. And now I have all these little plastic plants, which I had previously cut up for our other build, and then I just spend a few hours here finding little nooks in the rocks, little nooks in the foam, and sticking the grass tufts using the glue gun, and slowly adding plants on here until it looks right. And that seems vague, but you know, you do a bunch, let it sit, look at it, and then come back. And then finally, I'm going to, instead of a wash, I'm going to just take a permanent marker and hit some of the details that I made so that they stick out and they match the rest of the board. And that'll look really nice. Takes a little while here, and you got to be very careful not to mess up the paint job. You will usually ruin your permanent marker this way too, but it's worth it just getting an expensive one. And yeah, the tower is looking cool, and can't wait to throw this in the game. Can't wait to put it on the table. And that's what we got here, guys. So thank you for watching, and make sure to hit the like and hit the subscribe.
All right, so another epic piece has been finished for our Mordheim and Lustria board. This is going to be a really nice addition to our game board, and just every week we're adding a few more things. We got a few more videos to go in this series, and some other fun things coming along too. We'll be going to Adepticon this year, and we're going to be making a video there, playing some actual Mordheim games, that sort of thing. So if you haven't already, please hit the like, hit the subscribe, and you know what time it is, everybody. Say it with me. Now we're going to roll that beautiful bead footage!